Hello again. It's so nice that you've made it this far. Now that you know how digestion happens, let's now see how that all affects our gut bacteria. Welcome to Module 2 of this series, The Microbiome. Our knowledge of the role of gut bacteria is always evolving, so through Module 2, we'll go through what scientists have discovered so far. One thing we do know is that we need a proper ratio of good to bad bacteria so that our body can be healthy. Scientists are learning more and more about the connection between the gut bacteria and the function of our bodies. They're learning how this can help us maintain good health. The study of gut bacteria, or the microbiome, is a very young field of study, so there is still much to be discovered. There are many strains of bacteria, and they all have a different purpose. Supplement companies often will say that only their supplements work for a specific purpose, but don't be fooled by that. It's far more complicated than that. For example, eating a specific fermented food may be the same thing as eating one of their supplements. So let's talk a little about what bacteria do. Let's look at lactose intolerance, for instance. I mentioned on the last PowerPoint that bacteria digest lactose. Out there in common knowledge world is this scenario that basically says that if you can't digest lactose, you've lost the enzymes to do so. Well, you haven't lost the enzymes to do so, you've lost the bacteria that helps you have the enzymes to do so. Lactose intolerance is kind of a neat one because it can be a good test. As you improve your gut, you can try to reintroduce lactose and see if you've built up the specific bacteria to digest the lactose. If you have, you'll finally be able to digest it again. So what do bacteria do? Well, they help us digest many of the compounds found in the foods we eat, like the lactose. They improve immune function and prevent infection. They inhibit H. pylori. If you remember from a previous PowerPoint, this microorganism can cause ulcers. They can prevent diarrhea caused by antibiotics. So good bacteria can help with several forms of inflammation of the intestine caused by virus or infection. They help to reduce the duration of the illness and the frequency of the stool. Many doctors now recommend probiotics when they prescribe antibiotics. Things like kefir or kefir also reduce the duration of the symptoms. Diarrhea can be caused by food intolerances, but often may be from bad bacteria growing out of control. When you take antibiotics, you kill off the bad bacteria, but you also kill off the good bacteria. This gives the bad bacteria or the yeast a chance to grow. These tend to grow easier and faster than the good bacteria, so they kind of take over. One of the bad bacteria that may grow out of control you already know of is Candida albicans. Another one is called Clostridium difficile. We call it C. diff. Here's a little bit of technical information. The Center for Disease Control says that C. diff is a germ, a bacterium, that causes severe diarrhea and colitis, which is inflammation of the colon. It's estimated to cause almost 500,000 infections in the United States each year. About 1 in 6 patients who get C. diff will get it again in the next 2 to 8 weeks. So it isn't easy to get rid of. Then they say 1 in 11 people over the age of 65 diagnosed with a healthcare-associated C. diff infection die within 1 month. So these people have other health issues and they get C. diff. It all gets very hard to treat. I mentioned before that this is what my mom had. The doctor treated her with vancomycin, and after 2 rounds, she still had the infection. We worked with diet and lots of probiotics. This way, we were able to keep it under control. The first thing to try would be this biome that you see on the picture. It has been studied for C. diff with good success. This horrible infection is so bad that people will now get a fecal transplant to get rid of it. The fecal transplant that they insert is full of good bacteria and therefore fights off the infection. It has a very high success rate. When you travel to different countries where you have to worry about the water or the food giving you diarrhea, Saccharomyces boulardii can be helpful. It should be a part of your little traveling pharmacy. It's very good at resolving travelers' diarrhea. Now we have a miniature poodle. She's about 11 years old now. And when she was little, she got lost in the bush. She was about 6 months old, I think. And this was up north. So she got lost in the bush and she survived on whatever she could eat. And the neighborhood people would leave food out because they knew she was lost. And she wouldn't go to anyone. So anyways, she ate this food for, I think it was 2.5 weeks. When she was finally caught and we brought her home, we had trouble with diarrhea with her. We'd go for walks and it was major diarrhea all the way through. So I bought some Saccharomyces boulardii and I would open up a capsule and I'd put a little bit on each of her food servings, and it got rid of the diarrhea. And now she's 11 years old and has had no diarrhea since. So this stuff really works. But if you give it to an animal, obviously you don't give a whole pill. You just cut it down to a little bit. So when you're going on holidays and down south, and it's a place where the water may be contaminated, don't forget your bottle of Saccharomyces boulardii. You may be very thankful you brought it. Thank you. Choose to be happy, and I'll see you next week.